welcome back to another class of Chiku Chong. It's been a while since my last class, yeah, I understand. So I've been very busy. So today, starting from this year, I'm going to cover the syllabus of Form 5. Actually, I have a complete list or almost complete list of my Form 4 classes, including, starting from chapter 3 to chapter 15. So I only have 2 chapters that I haven't done, which is chapter 1 and chapter 2. All right, but most of it are the important parts I've already covered in my playlist. All right, so if anyone is interested to look at my previous videos, please do so and look under the playlist of Form 4 chapters. Okay, so for today, I'm going to start with Form 5 lesson. So I think most of you have already probably gone to chapter 2 or chapter 3. So it's a revision for you all then. All right, okay. So if you would like to let me know who you are on the channel, just type in hi and I'll be able to see your name. All right, okay, so I'm starting with adding the screen, adding my slides to the stage. Okay, so here it is. So I'm starting with chapter 1.1, which is organization of plant tissues. Okay, so it is a very simple topic, but it needs understanding and you need to remember it. All right, so there'll be some questions that will be asked in the exam. Of course, not all, but certain parts of it lah. All right, okay, so you need to have a clear understanding. Okay, let me start now. All right, so this is today my lesson I'm going to cover 1.1 only. Okay, in my next lesson I'll cover 1.2 and maybe 1.3 as well. Okay, so let's not start with organization of plant tissues. So you have learned in Form 4 before the organization of an organism, right, starts with the basic unit of living thing, which is always the cell. All right, the cell is the basic unit of living thing, of any living thing, in fact. So when you have a lot of cells, which is of the same type, okay, so a cell is one cell, right? So you have many cells of the same type, and you group it together, so they form a tissue. All right, so this is a revision, and you should know for your Form 4 work. And a tissue consists of many cells, which is of the same type, and they perform the same function. All right, okay. Now you have, let's say, tissue A. And then if you have another tissue, let's say tissue B, or tissue C, or tissue D, let's say all of them group together to form a specific structure. Okay, tissue A, tissue B, tissue C, and tissue D, for example. And they form a structure which we call the next level of organization. So you get an organ. All right, an organ is a structure or a part of a living animal or a plant that consists of many different types of tissue. Okay, now here I look at our focus is on plants. So we're not going to talk about animals. We have already seen all that in Form 4. So in Form 5, the main focus is on plants, which is from chapter 1 to chapter 7. Okay, now for organs, let's look at the example of organs in a plant. What are the parts of the plant which you consider as organs? Okay, so example, flower. All right, so flower, the function here is to produce seeds. All right, to produce the fruit first and then the seed. So it helps in reproduction. This is the function. So the organ plays a part in reproduction. Okay, another organ here is the leaf. The leaf is an organ, yeah, not tissue, yeah, because a leaf has many different tissues, many different types of tissues. Okay, you have the mesophyll, the palisade mesophyll, then you have the spongy mesophyll, there is the xylem, there's the phloem. So you have at least a few tissues there, different tissues, forming the leaf. So that is the leaf. It's an organ, and it performs photosynthesis to trap sunlight to make food. Okay, another example of an organ in plants. Okay, this is fruit. Right, fruit is produced after fertilization of flower. All right, of the female flower. So the fruit is an organ because inside the fruit there are many different types of tissues. All right, okay, and the function of fruit is to protect the seeds. Of course, make the seed first. All right, is to produce seed, and of course also protect the seeds inside, and of course also for reproduction. Okay, and one more, right? In fact, 2 more, right? So stem. Stem is an organ as well because there are many different tissues in a stem, and the function here is to support the plant, okay, to make it upright so that it can catch sunlight to perform photosynthesis. Okay, another example here is you can see under the ground there is something called the roots. The root is also an organ. All right. The organ here of the root, the function is to absorb water and also minerals so that the plant gets nutrients, all right, for healthy growth. Okay, so all these 5 examples here are examples of an organ in the plant. So this is a popular question. They ask you which of the following is not an organ. Okay, A, B, C, D. So you have to remember some examples. Okay, next. So what happens if you've got many organs like this? Flower, leaf, fruit, and stem. What do they form? Okay, flower, leaf, fruit, and stem. So different organs, okay, they form a structure which is called a system. All right, so the next level is many different organs form a system. So here the system you see above the ground, above the soil, you will see this is the shoot system. Okay, the shoot system is all the parts of the plant that is above the ground. Okay, that rises from the ground. So it includes the stem, includes the stalk, includes the flower, includes the fruit, and so on. Okay, and then what is inside the ground? Inside the ground, you have the root system. Okay, so whatever is inside the ground is the root system. So very simple in terms of system for plant. You have the shoot system and the root system. All right, okay. So this different system, you have shoot system and root system. They form the entire organism. So the entire organism, okay, that's the next level, which is your plants. All right, so the plant this is the organization of plant tissue, starting from cells, okay, into tissue, and different tissues will form an organ. Different organs form a system, and different systems form an organism, the whole body, okay, the whole body of the plant. Okay, so this is a revision of your Form 4. So now we apply that knowledge to plants. All right, okay. So if you have any questions, you can just type into the comments and I'll be able to answer for you. All right, okay. If no more questions, I'll carry on. Yeah, okay. Now, what are the plant tissues? So this is an organization chart that you have to memorize. Okay, you need to know whenever I give you this term, is it what type of tissue is it? Okay. First of all, plant tissues are divided to 2 groups. Okay, there are 2 different types of tissues. First of all, you have what you call meristematic tissues. Okay, and then the other group is called permanent tissues. All right, okay. So meristematic tissues are those tissues which are actively dividing. Their job is actually to produce or to carry out cell division. So the number of cells increases. So where are these tissues? The tissues that keep on dividing and keep on making the plant grow taller and the roots grow longer. Okay, so these meristematic tissues are found in 2 places. Okay, first of all, they are called the apical meristem. Apical means it's at the tip. All right, the tip at the ending. You have always ending at the top there and ending at the bottom. So you have 2 areas. One is the shoots. All right, the shoot is the apical. There is apical meristem at the shoot, which is here at the tip. At the ending of that shoot that always goes up towards the sunlight. And at the bottom here, you will have the tip of the roots. Okay, now this one I will explain in detail in my next lesson. So today my focus is on permanent tissues. Okay, I'm going to go to the permanent tissues for today's lesson. Next lesson, I will go into the meristematic tissues. Okay, so this is the apical meristem. They are found at the shoot and the root. Always remember this one referring to the tip at the ending, the tip of the shoot and the tip of the root. That's where they keep on dividing and increasing the number of cells so your plants can grow. Okay, now the other meristematic tissue is found inside the stem, okay, which we call the lateral stem. Lateral basically means at the side. So when you talk about the stem, right, at the side, right, there is a group of tissues there called the cambium, which is going to divide to make the stem become what you call the fatter, the diameter increases so that your plant will become, the stem will become fatter and thicker so that it gives support to the plant. So the plant will not break, the plant will not snap when the wind blows. All right, okay, so you have the apical meristem and the lateral meristem. I will go through this in 1.2, the next lesson. Okay, now today the focus is on permanent tissues. Okay, now permanent tissues, there are three types of permanent tissues. Okay, three types here. Okay, first of all is the epidermal tissue. Epidermal from the word epidermis. So epidermis is always the outermost layer. Okay, for humans or animals we call it the skin, right? The epidermis is like the skin. Okay, but for plants we don't call it skin. We just call it epidermis, or the type of tissues there is called epidermal tissue. Okay, it is always to protect the cells which are under this epidermis. Okay, it's a protection. So next, we have ground tissues. Ground tissues are those tissues that actually fill up the spaces inside the what they call the body of the plant. Okay, there are three types of ground tissues. Okay, so remember these names. They are a little bit, weird, right? They're a little bit complicated, but it's not difficult, right? First one is parenchyma. Parenchyma is a type of ground tissues. Later, I'll discuss with you how to recognize these three types of ground tissues. Okay, next one is collenchyma. It's also a permanent tissue. All right, it also fills up the spaces in the stem and also in the root or in the leaf itself. All right, and next one, sclerenchyma. Okay, so you have parenchyma, sclerenchyma, and collenchyma. These are three types of ground tissues. Okay, now the third group of permanent tissues is easy to remember. They are called the vascular tissues. So their job, okay, vascular means tubes, right? Yeah, tubes. So vascular always has the function, which is to transport. Okay, and vascular tissues you have learned in Form 3 before actually. All right, there are two types of vascular tissues. One is xylem, and then the other one is phloem. Okay, one carries water and minerals, while the other the phloem carries organic substances. That means sugar, all right, or amino acids, or hormones, or even enzymes, okay, in the plant itself. Okay, so this organization chart, you have to have a clear picture of it. You need to remember whenever I tell you, example, for example, parenchyma, what type of tissue is it? You need to remember it is a ground tissue. Okay, now next slide. All right. So now that you know the three the types of tissues, so today's lesson, as I told you just now, we're going to focus on permanent tissues only. Okay, so we go through that three types: epidermal, ground, and vascular. Okay, first of all right. Now, what are permanent tissues? Why do we call it permanent tissues? Okay, now permanent tissues are tissues that are mature. That means they are not just born, right? The tissues are already produced for some time, and they have specific jobs to do. They have specific function. Okay, epidermal tissues, epidermal cells, they have a job to do. Their own job is to protect all the tissues that are under it. And then vascular tissues, their job is to transport water, transport minerals, and so on. Okay, and for ground tissues, it's just to fill up the spaces in between the epidermal tissues and the vascular. So if they are not epidermal, they are not vascular, it will be the ground tissue. There are only three types of permanent tissues. Okay, let me show you a picture of the plant. All right, if this plant here, if you slice through the three places here, one is the leaf, here is what they call that, the stem, and another one here is at the root. You will be able to see these three types of tissues. Okay, and the first one, colored differently, you see the blue color. Okay, in the leaf, you will slice through the leaf, you will see the part that is blue, right there. Okay, leaf, stem, and roots. So the part that is blue, right, the blue layer here, they are called the epidermal tissue. Okay, so they will line the exterior of every part of the body of the plant, on the leaf, and then of course the stem, even the fruit. There's a fruit, right, and the roots. So epidermal is the outermost layer of cells. Okay, and then you see that's blue, right? Right, now second part here is, you see vascular. Vascular is the color purple here. So the vascular tissues are those that transport water and food and so on. So they are found in every part of the plant, and you can see the location is different. Okay, the vascular in the roots, in the stem, and in the leaf. So you can see it's colored purple here. Okay, and then you can see what is not blue, what is not purple. You see all the yellow parts there. All right, all these are ground tissue. Okay, and ground tissue will be those three lah: the parenchyma, the collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Okay, you understand now the three types of the what you call the three types of tissues and where they are found. Okay, so very simple to remember. If it is not vascular, right, they don't carry water, they don't carry minerals, they don't carry food, and if it's not epidermal, they're not on the outermost layer. That means that tissue must be non-tissue. All right, okay. Now let's go to the next one. Let's zoom in on just the first type, which is the epidermal tissue. Okay, what is the main function of epidermal tissues? Okay, just now I already mentioned to you, right? The epidermal is found on the outermost layer. So anything that's on outermost layer, like our skin, is always for protection. All right, so the function. So you have to remember for this part of the question, you need to remember the tissue and the function, and also describe, okay, examples. What type of tissue is considered an epidermal tissue? Okay, we have two examples of modified epidermal tissue. Okay, function. So here, remember, this is a protective surface. It provides an outermost protective surface for the entire plant. Okay, so animals will also have their epidermis, which is the skin. So for plant, this is called epidermal tissue. Okay, so they have a waxy, waterproof layer. So most of these epidermal tissues, they are waxy. Okay, it's smooth. It's made of like the waxy material. Okay, and it's called cuticle, like wax. So it's waterproof. So when rainwater, right, lands on the leaf, the water is not going to be absorbed into the leaf because there is a layer of cuticle. Okay, now only exception is at the roots. The root will not have cuticle. Okay, because if there's cuticle there, then it will block the absorption of water. Okay, cuticle is waterproof. So the root there is the function is to absorb water. So you cannot have waterproof layer on the root. Correct or not? If there's waterproof layer on the root, that means water will not go in. Of course, the plant cannot get any water, the plant will die. Okay, so epidermal tissues mostly will have cuticle except the root epidermis. Okay, next one. So cuticle, what is the function of cuticle? Why do you need cuticle on the leaves and the stem? All right, so it is to reduce the loss of water through transpiration. Right, on a very warm or hot day, so the sunlight could be very intense, and it can cause a lot of water to be evaporated if there isn't a cuticle. So the cuticle is to provide a waterproof covering, so less water will be evaporated from the surface. So it can only go out through the stomata. Okay, the stomata, and mostly is on the underside of the leaf. For UV caught, more stomata on the underside compared to the upper side. So for most of the leaves, yeah, that they will always have a cuticle so that water will not directly evaporate from the surface of the leaf into the air. And that of course will cause the plant to die very soon, or wilt first and then die later. All right, okay, so that's the function of cuticle. And it also, of course, another function is to protect, right? Protecting the underlying tissues, all the tissues that are inside, from injury and also pathogens. The pathogens are like bacteria, virus that can actually enter if there's no protection. Right, it can enter the tissues there and will attack the tissues, and the plant can have diseases and the plant will die. Okay, the same like us, our skin is a very important protection. So if the skin is broken, that's where bacteria will enter. That's why when we are injured, we should always put antiseptic and wrap up, bind the cover the wound, right, to stop the entry of pathogens. Okay, so next, what are the examples of epidermal tissues? Okay, what are they? Modified, we call it modified. So I have two examples for you. So epidermal tissues, example number one is this thing. Are you able to tell me what type of tissue is this? What type of cell? Tissue cell, right? It's found on the leaf. So I do not know if you're there. Let me check whether you're here or not. Is anybody watching or not? Okay. If not watching, it's all right. video is always there. Anybody is interested can watch it later. Okay, so let me see. All right, so no answer. All right, maybe probably most of you are very shy, don't answer. All right, now this is actually a picture of gut cell, a pair of gut cells which surround a stomata, a stoma. Okay, so this gut cell is actually an example of epidermal tissue. This example is a modified one. Okay, so because the neighboring cell is actually epidermal cells, right? But this is modified. The shape is very, very specific and very unique, so that it will curve, it will bend and expose the stomata when water enters the gut cells. Okay, example, gut cell. All right. So the gut cell is to control, the function is to control the opening and closing of stomata. All right, okay. And another example, okay, you see this. I don't know whether you can recognize this. It's under the microscope. It's microscopic. It is very small. It's very fine. All these tiny projections. This is in the as at the roots, right? So all this is actually, this is the picture. There's now the actual pictures up there. This is the root hair cell. So root hair cell is an example of a modified epidermal tissue. Only thing is why you call it modified, because it has a projection. It is a long, so a long filament like that. Okay, it's actually an epidermal cell to start with, an epidermis. Okay, root hair cells. So what's the function of root hair cells? Why do you have that projection there? It is to increase the surface area. So anything that's is anything that is protruding. You have extra surface. All right. The extra surface is to increase the absorption of water and also mineral ions. Okay, or minerals lah. So that's why you need to have projections here to always increase the surface area. Same thing like your villus in the small intestines. Okay, next. So you remember the two examples of epidermal tissues. Okay, next. Now we go to the ground tissues. Okay, the ground tissues. You see all this yellow part here, the colored yellow. So there are three types, right? So the three types are, now the function of ground is to fill the spaces in between the epidermis and the vascular tissue. So like I mentioned just now, if it's not epidermis, it's not vascular, it must be ground tissue. There are three types. First, parenchyma cells. Parenchyma tissue, cells of tissue, same lah, right? With one, you call it a cell. Many of the same type, we call it tissues. Okay, next one, collenchyma tissues. Okay, and next one, sclerenchyma tissues. So it doesn't mean that parenchyma is found in the leaf, the collenchyma in the stem, and the sclerenchyma in the root. There's a mixture of this. So in the leaf, you can have parenchyma, you could have collenchyma as well. In the stem, there will be parenchyma, collenchyma, or sclerenchyma, depending on how old the plant is. Sometimes the older plants will have sclerenchyma tissues, which is a bit rigid, a bit harder, okay, a bit thicker, the cell wall. Okay, so these are ground tissues. Now look at the picture. You will be able to recognize that they have very specific shape, right? And one of your skills is to learn how to recognize these three types of tissues. Okay, later I'll tell you how to recognize, because this can be one of the questions. The question gives you a picture, right? What type of ground tissue is this? Parenchyma, collenchyma, or sclerenchyma? Okay, so now I'm going to teach you how to look at it and how to recognize what is the type of tissue. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Now, three types of ground tissue. Okay, first we start with the first one, which is called the parenchyma. All right, okay, parenchyma. Parenchyma. So parenchyma is actually, now look at this picture. The first picture up there is the actual picture taken under the microscope. The second one is a drawing. Okay, you will see that there's nucleus. The black dot here is nucleus, and this cell, parenchyma cell, has very thin cell wall. And you can also see that there is spaces, tiny little spaces between each cell. Yes or no? Right, wait now, where is my pen? Let me write down. Yeah, I got a pen here. Okay. I'm going to highlight what I mean. Okay, now I use my here. All right. You can see this part here. I highlight, okay, in green and blue. Can you see all this empty space here? There's tiny little space in between the cells. Okay, this one I colored green, blue. Okay, blue. So this is one of the indication that it is a parenchyma cell. Okay, so has the thinner cell wall. So the major indication, how do you know it's a parenchyma? Number one, it is thin. The cell wall is very thin. Not the cell is thin. Please don't say the cell is thin. You should say the cell wall is thin. It has the thinnest of all the three. The parenchyma has the thinnest cell wall. And the cell wall is made of course, cellulose. All the cell wall is made of cellulose. Okay, so you can see these spaces in between. And there's nucleus. And also inside there, you will see cytoplasm, right? And vacuole, probably vacuole as well. So because this parenchyma, the function is to store food. So there will be vacuole, there will be cytoplasm as well. Okay, the thinner cell wall is very easy to spot. Okay, collenchyma. Now, collenchyma, these are the pictures for collenchyma. You will see slightly different, right? You will see a lot of this very thick black color, the gray color here. This is actually the cell wall. So you will see that this cell wall, let me just highlight this in different color. Okay, I use orange. So you can see this cell wall, right? It's not evenly thick. So certain areas are a little bit thicker, so certain areas a little bit thinner. So this cell wall is thick, yes, but it is uneven thickness. So that you can see here. Okay, you see this part here? This part is very thick, right? The cell wall. And then another part here, you see the cell wall is thin. All right. Okay. So the thickness, the black color or the dark color here is actually referring to the cell wall. So you can see that they are unevenly thickened. That is your clue. All right. So first thing, thicker cell wall. So the cell wall here is thicker compared to parenchyma. And another feature that you will see very clearly is it has uneven thickening. So sometimes here is thicker, the another place is thinner, and so on. Okay, uneven thickening of cell wall. And the cell wall is made up of not just cellulose, but hemicellulose, the modification of cellulose, a material, and pectin, another material. Okay, pectin is found in plant cells, right, and plant tissues. And normally we use pectin to make jam. All right, pectin is one material, so it is a substance that we find in, especially in fruits, right? You will have pectin. All right, you look at your jam, you go to the fridge and look at your jam, you will have pectin here. Pectin is to actually thicken the jam. All right, okay, now sclerenchyma. So sclerenchyma also has a different, very specific structure. Now the one on top here is the actual picture taken under the microscope. And you see the red color one, the one that is red color, this is sclerenchyma cells. And the one in the picture there, you will see also very thick and angular. All right, the cells are angular. And the cell wall is actually evenly thick. You see, everywhere is the same thickness all around the cell. Okay, the thickness of the cell is, the cell wall is thick and it's evenly thickened. Okay, so how to explain it? Why do you say this is sclerenchyma? Because it has very thick cell wall. Out of the three, it has a thicker cell wall. And the thickening of the cell wall is even. Even means staccato. Okay, the thickness is same everywhere. Not like the collenchyma. Collenchyma here, thicker, one corner thicker, the other side not so thick. Okay, and it is strengthened by lignin. Something like what the xylem has. So because it's strengthened by lignin, that means this sclerenchyma can offer mechanical strength. It can give support to the tissue of the plant. It can give support to the plant. Okay, so these are the three. You see how to compare them, and you must be able to identify. Okay, looking at the picture, which is which type of plant tissue. Okay, okay, go to the next slide. No questions, I see. All right, next one. Next one. Now, parenchyma. Now we look at the feature and also the function. Okay, that means this question, usually they will ask you, why you call it a parenchyma? So the structure first. Structure means something physical. You're going to describe what it has. Look at the cell wall. Does it have nucleus? Now, structure is physical. Function, it means what it can do or what does it do. Okay, so when they ask you for question, ask you for structure, don't give function. Okay, that means they ask you to describe the structure, right? Then you don't say parenchyma stores food. That is not the structure. Parenchyma stores food is a function. What does it do? Okay, so when you do questions, you will get more practice. So I want to let you know what is the difference between structure and function. So to answer wrongly, because sometimes students, when they ask you for structure, you just say what the parenchyma does, which is wrong. Okay, first of all, now look at this picture. All right, you can see that it's thin cell wall, and inside every cell here there is cytoplasm. There is this food storage there. Okay, so structure. It is living cell. Living cell meaning when a cell is living, there has to be nucleus, there has to be cytoplasm. Okay, that's called living cell. All right, if it's dead, then the nucleus probably is no longer there, and the cytoplasm is all dried up. So it's probably a dead cell. But living cell, you can see very clearly inside there, there's nucleus, there's cytoplasm. Okay, next, thin cell wall. So this is an indication, right? Why you call it, why you identify it to be a parenchyma cell. Thin cell wall. And also they have large central vacuole. So you see that all these empty spaces here inside these big cells probably is a vacuole there. It's not very clear from the picture. All right, you have a large central vacuole to store substances lah. That means water lah, to store the these amino acids lah, food and so on. All right. Okay, and there are small gaps in between the cells. So what do you call the gaps? These are the gaps. Yeah. Okay, now put it color. Now these small little spaces in between the cells, small little space, it is to allow for diffusion of gases. Okay, so this is mostly makes up the cortex, the cortex area, the cortex tissue of cross section of the stem or the roots. Okay, that is called under structure. Now function. They ask you what's the function. Please answer properly. Function is what does it do? What is its job? What is the job of the cell? Okay, number one, carry out photosynthesis. Especially in leaf cell. So in the root, of course, we don't say carry out photosynthesis, right? Because in the root is underground. But in the leaf there, the parenchyma cells that's in the leaf there is actually the palisade mesophyll and the spongy mesophyll. So they actually have the job of trapping sunlight to produce food. Okay, and those are actually parenchyma tissues. Okay, the palisade mesophyll and the spongy mesophyll, they are actually modified parenchyma cells. Okay, so they have chloroplast for only from leaf lah. But if it's in the root there, of course, the parenchyma no chloroplast lah. Okay, so they carry out photosynthesis. So example, in the leaf cells, you have this mesophyll palisade mesophyll and spongy mesophyll. Okay, another important function of parenchyma is to provide support. So it provides a little bit of support. In fact, this parenchyma will have the least support because the cell wall is thin. So they have to rely on the water. The water is called this turgor pressure. So when it is fully hydrated, the plant is fully hydrated, that means there's a lot of water in the ground, it's all into the, all absorbed already. So there will be pressure inside there, and that helps to keep these herbaceous plants upright so they don't wilt, they don't become limp, right? They don't become soft and flaccid. So parenchyma has the function of providing support lah. But of course, this support is not very strong compared to the Collenchyma and the Sclerenchyma, because for those two, the cell wall is much thicker. Okay, and next one, this one I already mentioned. So they store organic substances lah, sugar, starch, and that. So I'll give you an example like potato, right? Potato is underground, correct? All those potato the whole entire potato that you eat, actually what are you eating? You are actually eating parenchyma cells. All the cells in your potato, right, are filled with kanji, which is starch, filled with, of course, starch, and of course, nutrients and all that. So what you're eating after you peel off the skin of the potato, the yellow part there, each and every one of that thing there is actually the parenchyma cells. Okay, so you can see it's not very hard, isn't it? It's the cell here is actually thin cell wall. All right, okay, so that's about parenchyma, and of course, allow gaseous exchange to occur because of the tiny little gaps in between the cells. So gas can sort of like diffuse into the gaps, through the gaps between the cells. Okay, next, Okay, now we go to Collenchyma. All right, Collenchyma is the second type of ground tissue. They will look different. Okay, so let's see how different. Again, I'm going to go through the structure and the function. Okay, look at this picture. Now, this is actual picture taken under the microscope. And if we could draw, you will see that certain areas, certain parts or corners, certain corners are actually thicker. So you can see, let me use my pen. Okay, I'm going to use pink color here. You can see here, the corners here are a little bit thicker, right? The cell, the black color actually refers to this one. You can see here, this yellow and the green, these are the cell wall. So it's a little bit thicker, the yellow part here. That, the corner, the buchu, we call it the corners, right? Have thicker, they thicken corners. Okay, so structure. They are also living cells, but these cells are a little bit more flexible compared to the parenchyma because they have hemicellulose. Okay, they give a little bit of flexibility, elasticity to the plant and to the tissues. It has thicker cell wall than parenchyma. Okay, you can see obviously that because of the thickened corners are definitely thicker than the parenchyma. Next one, they have uneven thickening. So the key word here is uneven thickening for you to differentiate it from Sclerenchyma. Because Sclerenchyma, the next one you're going to see, it has even thickening. So this is uneven thickening at the corners especially. Okay, not at the side, but at the actual corners, at the butu, we call it the butu. All right, and the plant cell is made of hemicellulose, not just cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So it offers a little bit of elasticity to that plant tissue. Okay, it's elastic, a little bit elastic. Okay, provide support lah. Okay, of course, this support will be more than the parenchyma because of the thicker cell wall. And another one is provide elasticity, like I mentioned, because of this hemicellulose and pectin. All right, so if the question asks you, which ground tissue, what they call, provide elasticity to the plant, all right, definitely it is Collenchyma, not parenchyma, not the next one, which is parenchyma. So you say elasticity, that is for Collenchyma. Okay, next one, Sclerenchyma. Right, Sclerenchyma, again, we look at the structure and function. Okay, structure is the physical features. So you see all this? All this is a drawing of Sclerenchyma tissue. You can see the thickness. Okay, and then I draw this here. You see the, okay, this is the outermost, and see how thick is the cell wall? Let me, sorry. This is how thick the cell wall. And what is inside the middle there? That is the internal part of the cell. So the entire thing there is actually the cell wall. So thick, right? The cell was that thick. So this is another picture. This is taken under the microscope. You can see the red color. That is the Sclerenchyma cell. Another one, this is drawing. You can see it's taken, and you have tiny channels. You've got tiny, connection within the next one. All right, so there's tiny channels that can connect. That's not important. All right, you won't ask you this. All you need to know is the thickness of the cell wall. All right, okay, so they are dead cells actually. So there's no cytoplasm, there's no nucleus there. The cell is mostly all dried up. But why is it still there? It is still there because it is very thick cell wall. It can give structural support. It can give mechanical strength to the plant. Especially, I can give you an example. Pear. Pear. In Cantonese, we call it sa lei, right? Sometimes when you eat your pear or sa lei, you notice when you get to the middle part of the core of the plant, it's a little bit like sandy, isn't it? It feels like you're eating sand, right? Because a little bits and little like biji like that, little pits like that. It's actually what you're eating, right? When you feel that texture, the little like passe like that, in the sa lei, in the what you call the pear, it's actually this Sclerenchyma cell. So it's very hard. It's like little batu like that. All right. So it's the thicker cell wall of all the ground tissues compared to the parenchyma and the Collenchyma. And the thing that makes it stand out from the Collenchyma is the word even thickening. The thickness is all even. There's no one part that is thicker, the cell wall thicker one side and thinner on the other side. So that tells you it is Sclerenchyma. Okay, and cell wall may be strengthened with lignin. So lignin also offers structural support. It gives it very hard. So normally when you eat your pear sale, the crystal pear or whatever you call it. So the middle part of the near the core, right? The middle part here, you'll be get a bit not nice to eat because it's very sandy, sandy, a little bit pizza, a lot of libang, a lot of like sand or that, right? It's because of the Sclerenchyma. Okay, now function provide because of all this thickness and all that. So it provides support and mechanical strength in mature plants. So usually mature tissues, mature plants will have this Sclerenchyma. The young ones all will have Parenchyma, okay? But as they grow older, all right, some of these will actually become, right, Sclerenchyma. So the Sclerenchyma dries up, all right, so it will become to give the offer strength, mechanical strength to the plant, all right, and also helps in the transport of water and nutrients in plants. Okay, so this is about Sclerenchyma. So all the three ground tissues we have covered. So the most important thing that you should know here is to describe these three ground tissues in terms of the structure. Why do you call it Parenchyma? Why do you call this Collenchyma? Why do you call it Sclerenchyma? And recognizing them from the picture. If they give you a picture, you need to know which is which. Okay, now next one, we go to the next part, which is vascular. All right, I will leave the meristematic part later. I've already covered epidermis, the epidermal tissue. I've covered ground tissue. So the third part of the permanent tissue is vascular tissue. Okay, vascular tissue is found in the leaf, in the stem, and also the roots. Okay, so function is to transport water and food. Nutrients is a general name, including water, minerals, food, sugar, amino acid, fat, everything is called nutrient. Okay, two types of vascular tissue. So you have xylem and, of course, phloem. Now, xylem, how do you recognize what is xylem? So usually if they give you a picture like this, okay, it's called a cross section of the stem. All right, you'll be able to see all the big libang there, right in the middle there. That is xylem. The bigger ones, right, compared to the smaller one will be the phloem actually. The diameter of the xylem is bigger compared to the phloem. Okay, so this is a vascular bundle. You will see that the xylem is nearer to the inside, the middle part. The phloem is a little bit towards the outer side. Okay, next one, phloem. All right, phloem tissues. So here, if I were to identify from here, look at my label. Okay, xylem, I'm referring to this one, this part here. Let's see it. Okay. This one, the middle part here. All right. And what about phloem? Phloem will be this one. Phloem will be this one. See that? The smaller here will be the phloem. All right, this one is the phloem. And the xylem is the one with the bigger diameter. Okay, so phloem. Now, see, sorry, this is so the one is. Can you see the words here? Let me just cut this. Okay, xylem is the one, the orange color here. You will see that water passes through. And for the next one, this one is the phloem. Phloem, you got two types of cells there. Later you will see this combined cell. All right. So phloem, actually, the transport of food in phloem can be two ways. Not always coming down. It can go up to the flower. It can go up to the buds. But water is always one way, which is from the roots, okay, or the soil up to the leaves. Water is transported in one way, which is unidirectional, while food in the phloem can be transported bidirectional. Can go up or can come down, okay, depending on where the food is needed. Okay, next, vascular tissue. Okay, now let's slice through the stem and identify where is this phloem in xylem. Okay, so always remember, the water is more important, right, compared to food, correct enough? You cannot survive more than 2 days without water. But you don't eat for 2 days. You won't die because you have fats in your body that you can convert. You can break down the fat to produce energy. Water is more important, yeah. Remember that. You cannot survive possibly more than 2 days without water. So that water is more important. So it's inner side. Okay, you can see the red color part. That is the side. So vascular tissues, identify the location. Xylem is the one that is inner, which is nearer to the middle part. It's called the pith, P-I-T-H, pith. And the phloem is nearer to the epidermis. Okay, phloem is nearer to the other side, of the side. And in between you have cambium. So this one I will cover in the next lesson, which is 1.2. It's going to be this cambium under the meristematic tissue, the next group. Okay, the group that is going to actively divide. So now, so far what I'm covering in today's lesson is all the permanent jobs of this tissue. Epidermal tissue, vascular tissue, and ground tissue. All these three, they have permanent jobs to do. Nothing to do with cell division. Cell division is cambium, and that is 1.2, which I'll do next lesson. Okay, now let's go to this one, yeah? Now, if I were to magnify this, right, we draw it, magnify this and you can see. So this one is xylem. Now, how do you know it's xylem? You can see all these lubang, these little pits, we call it P-I-T-S, the small little pores in between. These tubes, right? It's long, it's continuous, so they actually transport water. Okay, also not just up, but sideways. Phloem, you will see that beside the phloem, there's special cells there called the companion cell, which is going to provide energy to allow this phloem, we call sieve tube, to transport the food. Okay, let's look at the details. Yeah, cambium we won't do it today, right? Now xylem, let's see xylem. This is a longitudinal section of xylem, right? Made up of two types of tissue. So remember the two types of tissue in the xylem. Okay, we call it xylem vessel and trachea. All right. So xylem is collectively just to transport water, but actually inside there are two types. You can see clearly here. One is bigger, the diameter is bigger, and the other one is diameter smaller. Correct or not? So structure. Let's look at it. Now, xylem vessel has bigger diameter. Okay, you can see that bigger diameter, and more importantly, you will see that the ends are flat. They are not sharp. They are not pointed. So this is xylem. Whereas for the other one called trachea, you can see the diameter is smaller, right? Diameter is smaller, and you can see that the ends are pointed. So how do I draw this? Okay, red color. See the ends are pointed. You can see not? Yeah, so the ends are pointed. So that is how you identify xylem vessel from trachea. Okay. So pits are always lubang, small little holes in between to allow water to be transported sideways also, not just up and down. Okay. So structure. Now, how do you describe xylem? They're actually dead cells. Okay. In the beginning, when they were formed, there is nucleus, there is cytoplasm. So when they're young, they are not dead. But when they mature, yeah, the cytoplasm dries up, no more cytoplasm, no more the nucleus. It becomes like a hollow tube. So you have a hollow lumen. Lumen is the middle part here, no cytoplasm. Okay, and this is no problem because you need this kind of empty structure so that water can be passed on effectively, efficiently. Water can move up easily because there's nothing to obstruct, nothing to block the flow of water. Okay, and the cell walls are thick, right? They are strengthened with a material called lignin. So this is going to offer mechanical support. Okay, and so this structure, how will you describe the structure of xylem? It's continuous, connected from end to end. That means one here, another one here, another one here is continuous. Okay. Function. Now, what's the function of xylem? Very simple lah. This one you should know. Everybody should know. Transport water and dissolve minerals from the roots. It's always going up from the roots because of the root pressure. And there is water going into the root hair cell through osmosis. So water will keep on pushing up until it goes up to the shoots of the leaves. Okay, next. Right, and also provides structural support. So not just only to provide to support water or transport water, but more importantly, it also gives structural support because there's lignin there. There's lignin there to make the plant a little bit strong. So when the wind blows, the batang will not snap. Okay, the stem will not snap. Okay, lastly, let's look at phloem now. All right, phloem. So phloem is made up of also two types of tissues. They are called sieve tubes and companion cell. Okay, so sieve tube and companion cell. Just now, the one is called vessel, xylem vessel, and trachea. That is for xylem. So phloem got two types of cells. So how do you recognize them? Simple, right? Sieve tube is like, look like xylem just now, look a lot like xylem, and there are sieve plates in between with a lot of holes or perforations that is going to allow this food to go through. Okay, a cytoplasmic stream, cytoplasmic strands. Okay, got cytoplasm inside there, got cytoplasm. And then for companion cell is the cell that's next to it, a little bit smaller, but this is an important cell because this cell helps the sieve tube to carry out the job of transporting food because it needs energy. This is active transport. Transport of food requires ATP. So you need companion cell to provide the ATP for the process to occur, which is active transport. We call it translocation, transport of food. Okay, so structure. They are living cells. There is cytoplasm. Okay, so this is not dead. This now xylem is dead. This is living. So there is nucleus, but in the companion cell. In the sieve tube, no nucleus. In the companion cell, there is nucleus. Okay, and it's continuous. Again, same similarity lah. This is similarity between xylem and phloem. Continuous, connected from end to end, right? From one end to the other end. And the companion cells have an abundance of mitochondria. That's why I mentioned already. Why you need mitochondria? Because to produce energy, we call it ATP, for the process of transporting food. We call it transportation. Okay, function. What's the function of phloem? Simple. Only one, which is transporting organic substances, which is sugar, amino acids, hormone, whatever, right? Produced from photosynthesis. This is a food lah, right? But are always in the leaves, right? Photosynthesis. To all parts of the flower, it can be to the roots, it can be going up to the flower, it can be this any storage organ. Okay, so that is the function of phloem. So remember the structure and relate it with the function. So this is important. This is also related to chapter 4 actually, If some of you have already learned chapter 4, you will find that I'm repeating this. Actually, this is what you already seen in chapter 4. So chapter 1 and chapter 4, you have similar topics. That is the structure of xylem and phloem. Okay, so I covered here so that my chapter 4, I don't have to cover so much. Okay, all right. So that is the lesson from me for today. So thank you very much for joining my class. I hope that it enlightened you on this topic 1.1, and I will do 1.2 in another day. All right. So just keep track when I'm going to have it. Probably next 2 weeks later. All right, 1 or 2 weeks later. Normally this is my fixed time. Usually at 4 o'clock. So I try to have a lesson with you. And if you're not free to watch it, it's all right because it's always in the YouTube. You'll be there as long as I don't take it away from the channel. Anybody can log in and anybody can just click and just watch it. All right, okay. So I will see you in my next lesson. So thank you very much for joining my class. And do subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed, so that you will know that when I'm having my next class. And also share the link to your friends if you feel that your friends do not know this and you would like to help them. All right, okay. Thank you very much. And I will see you in my next lesson. Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Okay. I'm looking how to end my lesson. Okay, bye-bye.